Hello, my name is John, and this is Buddy Andy. You're listening to Packers Blitz podcast, the podcast for the fans, done by two fans who survived the dark times of the 80s of Packers football and live to talk about it. And again, this Packer podcast is always Packers Blitz. We always dedicated the greatest fans of all with Packer fans. So, that's something we love to talk about and talk to. And we are very lucky again to have Michael Neelsen with us, good friend of the show. And, it's something we're always excited to have it on. And we're going to be talking, too, about his exciting new documentary that has put out, Beyond Human Nature, which I'll let you pump that up, Michael, later so you can talk about that. I'm excited. Me and the wife are going to watch it this weekend.
Oh,
so
lovely.
Really excited about that. Yeah, we'll give you your honest opinion. Okay, Michael, you're my friend. I got to be honest with you. So I'll just, go from there. But
so it's a great date night movie, John.
Yeah, it's true crime documentary. It is a lovely date movie.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy. So, but before we all get started with all the Packers news and the draft recap and all that good stuff, I wanted to dedicate this to my good friend, Scott. He passed away last week. He wasn't not only my brother and friend, but he's also a diehard Packers fans who listen to this show. And I will miss him. I love him. And, I know he'll be watching the Packers from wherever he is. And listening to my show and giving me nice comments because that's the kind of guy he was. So we love you, Scott, and I'm going to miss you. So, all right. Now, here we go. The draft recap. Andy and I had a blast doing the live version. Now, Michael, I don't know if you saw it. You can go on YouTube if you'd like to see two old guys talk about the Packers and lose their mind about the pick. But we'll get into that.
Yes.
But Andy and I talked for over 4 hours. Andy, can you believe that? Wow, that's a lot.
Time flew. It definitely flew, John. It was a lot of fun. Lots of pizza and beer.
Yes, pizza and beer.
All
That
good.
always keeps you going. We'll have to have cheese curds next time, and maybe we'll sucker Michael into.
Yes, Michael would probably want the fried cheese curds.
Yes.
According to what I heard, I think it was episode 11, maybe 18, or a couple episodes that he was so graciously on for just increase the intensity level and the professionalism a little bit, quite a bit actually. Yeah. So thank you.
Absolutely.
No,
Thank you, Michael, for that.
It wouldn't take much to entice me. I would love to be doing that. That'd be great.
So Michael Neelsen, right? Filmmaker, ex Suncoast employee.
That's right.
Huge Packers fan and a Packers history savant.
Well,
that pretty much
to the extent that I lived through it usually. So I suppose that, I mean, all the Super Bowl dynasties, I feel like I know pretty well. The rest of it, I drop off, but yes.
Okay. Humble too. That's awesome.
That's what Packer fans are. We're humble. So one of the things I just wanted to mention really quick, if you want to see again two old guys arguing and talking about a bunch of Packers, go on our YouTube account, Packers Blitz, and you'll get to see us, our shiny, happy faces. So,
and you will not get back those 4 hours. You will not get them back.
And he's on fire, people, tonight.
The half an hour that I watched was actually pretty good. So
there you go.
Yeah, we didn't. So we looked pretty good for our age.
Hey, we do.
So,
hey,
look good. Didn't have much to say, but
we have plenty to say, my friend.
I know. Just joking.
So, Michael, before we get started on the Packer stuff, please pitch Beyond Human Nature. Could you tell people where they can see it? Again, what it's about really quickly. So just let people know.
Well, and I know this is a sports podcast, so I promise not to dwell on this too long, listeners. But it is a true crime documentary, as John mentioned. It is set in Green Bay, so it at least is relevant to those who know the geography. It is about the 1992 Tom Monfiles murder investigation, kind of culturally known as the Pulp Vat murder, when the 6 paper mill workers were convicted of conspiracy to commit first-degree intentional homicide of one of their co-workers, Tom Monfiles, by wrapping a jump rope around his neck and attaching the other end to a 50-pound weight, and then throwing him into a 2-story pulp vat. So he was discovered 30 years ago this past November, and there was a 2.5-year long investigation that we chronicle in the film, and then those men were convicted. They say to this day that none of them did it. They claim their innocence, and there's kind of been this divide in the community ever since about, what do you believe? Do you believe that these men did kill their coworker and it was like a union, getting back at one at like somebody who betrayed the union, or was it in fact instead a very surreal suicide situation where somebody killed themselves this way? So the whole film chronicles that whole story and talks to everyone on all sides, from the DA to the investigator to members of the Monfiles 6 to the victim's brother, and all different angles. And we've been having a really good time the last few weeks with the festivals, and now it's available nationwide on digital. You can find it on Prime Video, you can find it on Apple iTunes, you can find it on Xbox, DirecTV, Vudu, anywhere. We just got a really nice write-up in the Los Angeles Times the other day, and that was really nice. So we're getting good responses for it.
Yes, that's awesome. Los Angeles Times, big time, brother. Love that. So,
yes, sir.
So I want to. So yeah, John. Sorry to cut you off, John.
No.
This is a great segue into what I wanted to say. So I'm just going to say it quick. So again, welcome, Michael. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So it will be nice for our listeners to finally hear someone that is both articulate and well-mannered. Packers fans
about well-mannered. Shut up.
Packers fans and football fans out there are in for a real treat. Maybe Michael can give us some more analogies like the ones we came up with, comparing Green Bay's former starting quarterback to a 40-year-old soon-to-be divorced woman, a torpedo that sinks a battleship, and even a hibernating bear.
Interesting.
Those comparisons were all in fun, although they really did explain in a unique way what was actually going on during the whole Rodgers trade fiasco that lasted way too long, and the slow uncoupling of an 18-year relationship with the Packers organization. And I'm going to say something before Michael shares with all of us his infinite wisdom, and say simply this. Here we go. Aaron has been spending a lot of time this week going out on dates with his new franchise in New York City. It has been all over TMZ. Good for him. We'll have to see how long this courtship lasts. Will it continue to be bliss or become a debacle? I'm done. Moving on now, John.
Yeah, so one thing I don't know if you guys noticed, but they signed what's his name? Cobb.
Right. Yeah, Randall Cobb.
They signed Cobb today. Randall Cobb today. This is, what this is like? We are married men, right?
Yes.
Remember our honeymoon phase for Andy and I? It's a long time ago. Maybe you can remember a little bit better, Michael. Remember when the wife would ask you, honey, can we go out to dinner? And you'd be like, yes, honey. Honey, can I go here? Can we go there? And yes, honey. Now, Andy and I have been married over 20 years. So we have over 40 years of marriage. He says to me, honey, can we go here? I'm like, how much is it going to cost? Like, but where? I mean, I don't want to go. So that's where he's in right now. He's in this honeymoon phase where, hey, can I have Rob, even though his career is over and he probably won't do much for us? Sure. Sign up for $4 million. What the heck? I just thought that was really strange. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I just like Randall Cobb. Like what?
Yeah.
Michael, do you have anything to add about that? Just really quickly.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I feel like we saw that coming this whole time, right? I mean, there was talk the whole way. But I mean, Mercedes Lewis is going to be next, I'm sure. You know, it's going to definitely become, you know, the Green Bay Packers, New York, you know, essentially. But so yeah, I mean, it's emotional in some ways because it feels like, you know, half your star roster is being like rented by this other team for sure. It feels a little bit like that, a little jilted, a little like yeah, a little bit like the broken up kind of feeling. But then on the other hand, you know, I don't know where this is going to end for them. So it's he can enjoy his time and we'll see what happens.
Right. Yeah. So before we get to the draft recap, like I said, and some Jordan Love news, we wanted to give you, Michael, the chance to talk about the Rodgers trade. And, you know, if you want to add anything else to us. So first of all, the Rodgers trade, what do you think about that?
I think that, well, the moment that I heard that it was completed, I was really impressed with what the Packers got, honestly. I thought they were going to end up with a lot less. The fact that the conditional second round pick next year is virtually guaranteed to be a first round pick because it's just based on playing time. I mean, that's I never thought we were going to get something that easy. I thought it, you know, prior to it becoming that, it was conditioned based on them getting to the AFC Championship game. So to bring them down from getting to the AFC Championship game down to 65% of snaps, that's an insane decrease in cost. So I was really impressed with all that. We're almost guaranteed to have 2 first-round picks next year, along with multiple second-round picks and all that as well that we can hopefully package together to trade up really high in the first round if Jordan Love sucks this year, because there will be 2 really good quarterbacks going next year. So yeah, I thought that the trade overall worked out really well, and Brian Gutekunst did as good a job as we can expect given the market this year.
Yeah, and Michael, you were bumming me out on past shows where you were going, John, I just think we'll get a second round pick. I just, that's what I think we're going to get. Just second if we're lucky. And I was like, if we get a second round pick, I am driving up to Green Bay with Andy. And
I'll be going with you, John.
And you can come too, Michael. And we're kicking the you know what out of the whole organization.
Yeah.
That's the way I felt.
Well, so, you know, if Rodgers breaks his leg in week 1, we still could have just that second round pick.
No jinx. No jinxing. All right, so we're moving on. But what do you think he's going to do in New York? So first of all, let's talk about Andy and I have said he's going to have an MVP season. Do you believe that? And if so, why?
I don't know if he's going to win MVP, but I do think he's going to have a very good season. I think he's going to look like his, you know, MVP self. Whether it will actually be enough to win the award, I'm not sure. I mean, I have to bet if I were betting money right now, I would bet that they would lose somewhere in the playoffs, whether it would be the first round or divisional round or AFC title game. If I had to bet, I'd probably bet on losing in the AFC title game right now. But that's, you know, that's just because getting to the Super Bowl is so damn hard. Like I feel like it's a fairly easy bet to make that they wouldn't make the Super Bowl. I would have made that bet honestly, even with Tom Brady the first year he went to the Bucs, and I would have been wrong, obviously. But you know, I may be wrong about that, but right now I think that's where it's going to be. And I think the Packers are going to struggle this year, I think, but that's just to be expected.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But so let me ask you this: when is the first time the New York media gonna rip Rodgers apart? When he starts talking about retirement, or he just starts in with one of his weird ayahuasca things? What do you think they're gonna do to him?
I think this year is going to be a love fest. I think it's going to be like Favre's first year in Minnesota.
Sure.
Where hardly a single negative word was said about Favre because they were winning and it was, you know, a franchise that hadn't won in so long and hasn't really won a Super Bowl ever with the Vikings. With the Jets, I think it's going to be similar. And then I think it's going to be, towards the end of the year when he won't give a straight answer on whether he's coming back and all that kind of stuff. That's when they'll start kind of mocking him, I think, and doing all that. But I also honestly, I mean, this is how, kind of depressing this all is. I could see him saying mid-season that he's in for a second year. Like, I could see him, because he seems to right now be behaving in exactly the opposite way he's been behaving in Green Bay. In virtually every facet. So I wouldn't be surprised if he just completely ditches all the hedging and like, week 8, he's like, I love this. I'm coming back next year. No question. So,
yeah, I like that. I really like that. So I know this is hard to put you on the spot. There's so many, but give me your favorite Rodgers moment.
Oh, easy. 4th and 8.
Oh,
4th and 8.
Yeah.
Yep. 2013. The game at the end of the season, he comes back from his broken collarbone, happens to also coincide with the same game that Randall Cobb comes back from his injury that he had the whole year. So both of them return to the same game. He starts off struggling, throws a pick on his first drive in the end zone. Seems like he might not be his full self, but by the end, he goes on a long ass drive where he converts 2 fourth downs on that drive. The final one being to the other guy, the other teammate who also had been injured up until that game. And it's the television call of his career with Joe Buck. It's against the Bears. It's a night game. It's cold. I remember where I was watching it.
Nice.
Yeah, from a moment standpoint, that's absolutely the peak.
So before I get to Andy's favorite moment, if you can remember your favorite moment again, I remember it just in case you don't, Andy. Mine is Atlanta. Do you remember the Atlanta 2009, 2009, 2010 when they went to the Super Bowl? Where he could do anything. I mean, I remember they show a shot of Atlanta Falcons defensive coordinator, and he was literally just looking at everybody, shrugging his shoulder like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I really don't know what to do. They tried everything. I remember the broadcasters just going, they blitzed them, they safety blitzed them, they corner blitzed them, they went back in, 8-man coverage, and he just went, whatever.
Right.
Click. And it was the most, I just remember sitting there and just going, if we don't make the Super Bowl this year, I'm going to lose it.
Right.
Remember, like, he can't lose this game. And it was just bam, 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 bam. And I was just like,
that's probably the most thorough beatdown of his career. Absolutely.
Oof.
Yeah.
Oh, watch the highlights. It's insane. I've never seen anything like that. Andy, do you have a favorite moment really quick? I think I know what yours is, but if you could talk about it.
Well, we had talked about a different one, but I think I agree with you. There was a 3rd and 10 toss in the Super Bowl that he threw to Greg Jennings. That we had to have it, and it was an absolute laser beam.
Oof.
And I don't think that ball descended at all. Like, there was no gravity.
Yeah.
It was an absolute laser, and he threw a perfect pass to Greg Jennings over the middle. Yeah. And that's probably the one I remember the best.
I thought yours was the Dallas game.
It was.
Cook.
Yeah. That was the other one. But really, those are kind of interchangeable. Yeah, he's rolling out to his left. He tosses it down the left-hand sideline. We're trying to get into field goal range for a last-second field goal. And he tosses that pass to that tight end that we had. What's the tight end's name again? Jared Cook.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he put it in the absolute exact spot he had to put it, and it was one of the greatest passes I have ever seen.
Absolutely.
But that's Rodgers. He's so accurate. He's able to do things that not a lot of quarterbacks can do. Yeah. There probably isn't too many quarterbacks. Maybe you can count on maybe 2 or 3 fingers that could possibly have made that throw.
Yeah. I don't even see the young quarterbacks. You guys just chime in here. Joe Burrow, Herbert, Mahomes not young, but he's still young, I guess.
I think he's the only one.
I mean, you think Mahomes is the only one who can throw like Rodgers?
I think he's the only one that could come close. He might give him a few more years, because that was Rodgers maybe 7th, 8th, maybe. No, it might even be longer because for 8th year
longer.
starting, maybe. So
Correct.
whatever that was, 2017.
Yeah,
I
it was.
think? Yeah. So
believe so.
put Mahomes that far into his career. I think he might come close to doing that kind of stuff. But
yeah, Andy, do you have anything other add before we move on?
No.
Okay, cool. All right, buddy.
Nothing.
What do you got? You got some things to say here. I love it.
Yeah. Some of the last things to say about the Aaron Rodgers trade, hopefully reminisce a little bit, right?
Reminisce.
So Michael, you just got off the red carpet recently, and you have brought a level of sophistication and intelligence to Packers Blitz that will never be reached again. Now, will do a complete 360 turn, 360-degree turn right now, and descend into my own darkness and discuss for a final time some of the unintelligent quotes that I will always remember when it comes to the Aaron Rodgers fiasco. Like I like to say, you cannot make this excrement up. Like Vicini in the 1987 movie, The Princess Bride, said, inconceivable.
Hey, Michael, you've seen Princess Bride, right?
Oh, of course, many times.
All right, there we go.
Yeah, that's a different podcast.
I actually believe it's also Aaron Rodgers' favorite movie, ironically.
It is.
True.
Yeah, that's why we kind of brought it up in a previous podcast. But yeah, that had to do with him not being totally, factual with the Packers trying to get a hold of him.
Oh, sure.
And reach him. And so we're kind of poking fun at him a little bit. So I wanted to go through some of the unintelligent quotes that were given by certain people during this whole fiasco. So I'm just going to go through those, and then you guys can reminisce and remember these quotes. These are actual quotes, except for the last one. That one I made up. But the first one is from A-Rod. Of course, we've heard this one over and over again. When I went into the darkness, I was 90% retiring, 10% playing. That's where my mind was. End of his quote. That's A-Rod.
That's A-Rod.
The one from Packers CEO, President Mark Murphy.
Oh, no.
And this was actually before he was even traded. And just listen to the tenses and the verbs here. And so he's saying this in past tense. So there's a reason I picked this. Aaron had a great career here. And regardless of what happens, Aaron will be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He'll be in our Hall of Fame, and we'll bring him back and retire his number.
Andy, I got to do this. I got to do this.
Yes.
With people. Can't you understand that?
And Michael, John, I looked that up and I listened to it and I made sure of exactly what he said. So I read it word for word. And for him to say that like he was already gone,
I know.
When we didn't know he was coming back or not. I was just like, wait a minute.
Murphy.
Is he coming back? I thought he was coming back. Isn't he coming back? And that's where Matt LaFleur was probably getting really worried at that point.
Very worried. Yeah.
Okay. The Jets GM, Joe Douglas, didn't have much to say. He just said, he's going to be here. He's going to be here. And this is before the trade. Like he's talking to the fans, it's some fan thing. He's like, yeah, rah, rah, rah. And he's just, it's like, okay, Joe, you're saying he's going to be there. You're going to have to give us some draft picks. Exactly. So not probably good timing for him to be making a speech and saying that, but whatever. Packers GM Brian Gutekunst. I had to bring this one up. This is just a few days ago.
Yeah,
I had to. It's a lot of money for a guy. He's talking about Jordan Love, who hasn't played, but at the same time, obviously, we're moving forward with him, so we'll figure that out. And then he meant by Tuesday. And actually, they did figure it out. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So that was a quote from Brian Gutekunst. I mean, seriously, I'm not going to go into it too much because we'll talk about this in a little bit. But I can't believe he said that.
I like to do this for Brian Gutekunst. every time. He just is such a clown.
Yeah.
Oh, killing me,
Okay.
man.
Well,
Okay.
this is my last one. I'm looking into my crystal ball now, and this is the first thing. This is the first thing, John, Michael, that Matt LaFleur will say to Jordan Love when he sees him for the first time at OTAs on May 22nd. This is what Matt LaFleur is going to say to Jordan Love. Welcome back, Aaron. I mean, Jordan. So again, unintelligent quotes, that really make me glad that it's finally over. The end. So
what do you think, Michael?
So John, Michael, you got any other quotes for us?
No.
Any intelligent ones maybe during this whole saga?
I mean, I feel like
or whatever you want to call it.
Virtually every time Mark Murphy talks, there's usually one or two. Mark Murphy is he's kind of a cringe machine. He all he does is create lines that make your hair stand up. There was one he said before the Packers went on their tailgate tour just recently. Where he forecasted that they were going to Chippewa Falls, and Chippewa Falls wasn't even on their itinerary. Thought that was pretty good.
Yes, I was trying to find that one, Michael. Yeah. I couldn't find it, but I heard it. I saw it on the news. I saw it on TV, and I was trying to get the exact wording.
Yeah, I
didn't use that one.
Yeah,
and you're right. It was perfect.
Yeah,
it's like, we got to get going. He's like, tapping on his watch or.
He's literally
get going. We're on our way to Chippewa Falls.
Stepping onto the bus. Like, imagine this for yourself. You're stepping onto the bus or into the vehicle that's going to take you to a particular place, and you're mistaken about where it's taking you.
you guys missed my favorite one that he said. So how's the trade go with Aaron? And Mark Murphy goes, it's top secret. We got to keep it a secret. What?
Yep.
Mark Murphy. Killing me, man.
Boy.
Anyway, okay.
Yeah. It's finally over, though. It's finally over, guys.
So, Jordan Love, new deal. Do you want me to talk about it, Andy, or you want to bring it up?
Go right ahead.
Okay. So, Jordan Love has a new deal for 2024. Remember, it's only 2024, people. So all you Packer fans are thinking, oh, no, we signed him for like a 5-year deal. No, we didn't. Because he didn't pick up the 5th-year option worth $20.3 million. Instead, they chose to sign Jordan to a 1-year contract extension worth $13.5 million, fully guaranteed. Gentlemen, how would you like me to give you almost $14 million for doing nothing? That could increase that number to $22.5 million. So, Michael, what do you think, buddy?
I mean, they had to do something, and they at least protect the organization a little bit here. Their risk is a little bit lower, and I suppose from Jordan's standpoint, he's let's say he breaks his leg or he performs absolutely terribly this year. Well, at least he got something out of it. He didn't stay on a rookie deal where he got nothing and without the extension and all that stuff. So they both kind of this feels like a win-win to me.
Okay. Andy, you don't feel that way, do you?
I do agree with a lot what Michael said, so I'm just going to kind of cut down a little bit of what I was going to say. So yeah, I do agree with them. I think it's a team-friendly deal. It's not a ringing endorsement for Jordan Love long-term. And we do have an option to move off of him then because it's a 1-year deal. So the one thing I would say, it may indicate that the staff doesn't fully believe that he will ever become an elite top tier quarterback in the league. So they probably think he's more of a lower tier to a mid tier quarterback, like a Kirk Cousins, Costco hot dog.
Dog.
And a lot of people would rank Kirk Cousins probably in the 12, maybe 12 to 15 range.
Yeah. I guess.
Yeah. And
Sure.
so I think the Packers actually might be happy even if he's that good. But, I know from my perspective, you don't win championships in this league unless you have an elite top tier quarterback. And so if that's the case and they realize that he isn't, they need to move off and they need to find somebody else.
Yeah.
And they've had him already for 3 years, as you guys know, and everybody, all the Packer fans know out there. We've had him since 2020. They should have a good idea by now. Aaron Rodgers had 3 years, and they knew he was the guy. They knew he was the guy. You didn't hear anything bad coming out of camp about Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
And so I don't know. I'm feeling a little bit uneasy about this, but I'm glad that they didn't sign him for anything more than that. And I'm glad they were able to. I mean, you had to give him some incentives, and he is going to be our starting quarterback, so you got to pay him something.
Right.
And so the key, as John and Michael knows, we have a dead cap hit, I think, of I want to say $40.3 million for Aaron Rodgers. But next year, that's gone.
Woo-hoo.
And so a lot of this maneuvering is, I guess, Russ Ball again. He gave Aaron the big fat contract and everything, and that probably wasn't the best idea looking back on it. But now they have actually, in essence, gotten, they're going to come back out of this next year and have some money freed up, which is going to help us to move forward. So
absolutely,
this is kind of one of those years. It's kind of a limbo year. And when we start talking about our draft recap, a lot of what Goody did in the draft, kind of signals that there's going to be kind of a change going on.
Yes. Yeah.
And kind of a reboot. He's hitting the reboot button.
Well, in 2 years, I'm all over Arch Manning coming out of Texas. So let's we'll just bide our time until then.
There we go, my friend.
Very nice. Yep.
By the way, Michael, so for further shows, we call Kirk Cousins a Costco hot dog because
I picked up on that. Yes.
Yeah, a sports writer said that Kirk Cousins is the Costco hot dog, and he explained why. And it was really funny because he said, well, if you have a Costco hot dog for lunch, it's not really a meal per se, but it fills you up and gets the job done, but doesn't really do anything further than that. And I just think that's funny. I laugh so hard, and I think he's right.
That's pretty good.
He's just the guy that can get you to the playoffs, which is great, but then forget it.
Right.
You might sit down and just everybody go home. But that being said, he is a free agent next year. And would I love him to be a Packer? Hell yeah. Because I think he's better than Jordan Love, but we'll wait and see. Maybe that's a whole thing of me kind of trying to how can we rebuild the Packers quick? But Andy, I think you're going to show me that that's not going to happen that quick. So why don't we do our Packers draft recap and tell me a little bit about our draft and what we got.
Yeah, I'll give everybody, you guys, and all Packer fans, football fans out there, a little prologue. And I use that for Michael, by the way, prologue. So I will say that the Packers 2023 draft had very interesting things happen during it. First and foremost, the Packers actually acquired more draft picks during the draft by trading down and selecting a plethora of 13 players. Michael, did you like that? Plethora? Use that for you.
Plethora? Sure.
Yep. According to Dave Sinekin of ZoneCoverage.com, and this is a quote from Dave, with the team chasing Super Bowls behind Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers for the last 25 years or so, actually, it's 30 years, Dave.
30 years, Dave.
The idea of drafting 13 players for their talent-rich roster would be absurd. Instead of absurd, I'm going to use inconceivable.
Of course, I love that word, my friend.
But with the salary cap bills coming due this year and next, the Pack knows it needs to take as many swings as possible to infuse their top-heavy roster with young, affordable talent. End quote. and that was Dave Sinekin. That actually did a really good job of talking about that they have those salary cap bills coming due and whatnot, and they have to take some big swings. So the second thing that occurred is that the Packers drafted 7 offensive skill position players and 0 offensive linemen. None. In the immortal words of Vince Lombardi, here it comes. What the hell's going on around here? The Pack filled 3 big holes: defensive line, tight end, and wide receiver. They drafted a kicker to maybe replace Mason Crosby. They got some backups, a quarterback and a running back, and added some depth in the secondary, a cornerback and a safety. Because the goal of any draft is to get at least 3 starters, hopefully the Packers accomplish that feat. So, Michael, I organized some of our draft picks and I kind of grouped them by position group. Did you want to rattle some of those off, so to speak, and talk about our draft?
Certainly. So you've got them here in chronological order. It looks like. Oh no, you got them in position order. I see.
I do.
Got it. That's just fine. So for defensive linemen, we've got Lucas Van Ness, obviously the first round pick. We've got Colby Wooden out of Auburn, Carl Brooks out of Bowling Green. And then for tight ends, we've got 2 really pretty great names that I'm very excited to see on the football field. Luke Musgrave out of Oregon State and Tucker Kraft out of South Dakota State. For wide receivers, we've got Jaden Reed out of Michigan State, who looks like he could really be something if he lives up to those highlights. Dontavian Wicks out of Virginia, Grant Dubose out of Charlotte. Quarterback, we got Sean Clifford out of Penn State, who ended up going to a Rose Bowl with or did he go to Rose Bowl or a national championship? I can't remember.
Rose Bowl against Utah.
That's right. That's right. So he went to a Rose Bowl at least. So that's he's at least been part of a winning organization before. It'll be interesting to see how he transitions. Running back Lou Nichols out of Central Michigan. That's where my mom went to school. That's very fun. And also where Greg Jennings is from, I believe.
That's correct.
And a kicker, Anders Carlson out of Auburn,
yes.
And defensive backs Carrington Valentine and Anthony Johnson Jr.
Yes. Yeah, so Michael, I'll just chime in quick. So best picks, just looking at those, worst picks, overall synopsis. You got any overall thoughts on that? I know you paid attention to the first round, especially.
Yeah.
So you could probably start off with Lucas, I would guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about what Lucas Van Ness could be if he actually turns out to be what he could be. Right? It's a very high ceiling. He might, It's always a little bit nerve-wracking, drafting somebody who wasn't even starting where he was. But I don't know that was necessarily because he wasn't good. It might have been more just the strategy of the team in some way or the way that the roster was falling. But he sure seems to have all the measurables.
So Michael,
yeah.
I can add to that. I can add to something that I just learned how Iowa does it, and it's really backwards from most other team. They want their seniors and upperclassmen to play first.
Right. That's what I heard too.
So he didn't play necessarily because he wasn't any good. He didn't play because what's his name? The head coach of Iowa. Yeah. He just does it a different way.
Kurt.
So that if that obviously would be a point in favor of him being as good as he looks, which is great. I'm very excited about both Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, and obviously Jaden Reed I think looks great. I would say the one that gives me the most pause is Anders Carlson, the kicker, just because of the big headline grabbing stat about him being that he's essentially 50-50 from like 40 yards out. Like that's kind of we'll have to see what they think they know about him that we don't, because that stat doesn't sound terribly great.
No. Not at all. Not in the NFL when you're averaging a 40-yard field goal pretty much half the time or more.
Yep.
Yeah, you're missing that.
At Auburn, his brother, who plays now for the Las Vegas Raiders, is Daniel Carlson. And so Daniel had 80% success rate at Auburn. I believe he went to the same school as Anders. And Anders was a little bit worse. He was 72 point, I think, 4 or something to like that. So he wasn't quite as good as his brother. And so I mean, I can go into Anders a little bit more later on, but he's the younger brother of Daniel Carlson, who's a pretty darn good kicker. He kicks at 89%, and he's phenomenal. So so that well, if you want me to just continue, that assistant head coach and special teams coordinator Rick Bisaccia, that was his pick, because he coached Daniel Carlson before. And Michael's absolutely right. He doesn't have a strong leg on kickoffs. He isn't very good beyond 50 yards, and he's not even good with his mid-range kicks. And he hasn't kicked really in the cold. So, hopefully Goody has Mason Crosby on speed dial.
He sounds perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, and plus the other interesting thing, and I would have brought it up later, he had gotten hurt a few times, and so that kind of seems to be a lot of our picks in this draft were injured players this past season, for whatever reason. So I'll bring that up a little bit later. So okay, sorry to interrupt.
No, anything else, Michael, before I give my favorite picks?
No.
Okay. So you guys, I am in love with this guy. He is the second coming of Khalil Mack. And I'm not kidding you. And I know you guys will be like, hey, man, did you have a few beers before you got on this podcast? Defensive lineman Carl Brooks out of Bowling Green. Put on the tape and then go and watch YouTube tape from Khalil Mack. They could be brothers. They could be twins. Their first step is out of this world. I mean, it's insane. I saw this and I've been watching it and drooling. If he can even come close to this, oh my gosh, we have one of the steals, if not the steal of the draft. Again, I get it. He's at Bowling Green. He's not facing the top guys, but his first step is unbelievable. It just ranks up there with like Lucas Van Ness is more, he's going to power you. He's going to get up there. He's going to get in your pads, and he's just going to drive you back. There's a good tape of Lucas Van Ness against Paris Johnson Jr. or whatever it is from Ohio State when Iowa played Ohio State this year. And it's the weirdest thing you're ever going to see. You're going to see Lucas Van Ness kick the ever-living stuffing out of him on one play out of this Paris guy who got drafted, I believe, by not Chicago. Was it Chicago? Whoever drafted him.
It might have been Arizona Cardinals.
Arizona? Okay. Maybe. So anyway, and then on the next play, Lucas Van Ness looked like he ate too much, like had a snack in between plays, had a Snickers, and just wasn't doing anything. So I'm like, oh boy. And then I thought, wait a minute, that's Rashawn Gary. Put Gary's tape of his senior year in Michigan, and there are plays where he's a man amongst boys, and you're like, no wonder we drafted him. And then you watch other plays, and you're like, oh boy, a veteran guy is left tackle is going to eat him for lunch. My other guy is Tucker Kraft. I hate to say this, he's Gronk 2.0. He really is. If you look at him, he's a big guy. He just kind of bumbling, stumbling, rumbling down the field. I really think that he can, I think it's going to take a little time, but I do think he can come in and play and be effective if the Packers are smart and use him just like Belichick used Gronk, right? What was Gronk? He would run down the field 10 yards, throw him the ball, smash some people. He's in the end zone. Or he would be near the end zone, smash, crash, bash, and he's in, right? That's how you use this guy. Musgrave is more finesse. You got to use him like Kittle or Kelsey, where you just kind of get him and he slips in the middle and you throw him that 20-yard, bullet, and he gets, before you know it, he's in the end zone. And you're like, how did that happen? Like, he just ran past me. But this is my other guy, safety Anthony Johnson Jr. from Iowa State. So I watch a lot of college football. And for some strange reason, I've been watching a lot of Iowa State games because that's what they've been playing. And the year before, he was a corner. And man, I thought, this guy's really good, And he could have gone first, mostly second round. But then he switched to safety. And he kind of fell off, which in safety, if you don't take the right angles, Packer fans, we know that. Darnell Savage, Adrian Amos, how many times they took the wrong angle, and there goes the receiver running down the field, and you're like, what are you doing? But he really, in my opinion, if Eric Stokes does not make it 100% this year and comes back, he can slide in that role and be a force. I mean, again, look at the tape. If you have 10, 15 minutes, just go to YouTube, throw on the tape, and you'll be like, how did this guy fall? It was because he switched to safety and he didn't really, it wasn't that he was bad. It was just, you can tell he was learning and trying to get the signals and the angles. And it's hard, And those guys, those are my big three amigos. If those guys can step up this year, at least give us something. Oh, man. I'm not saying we're winning the Super Bowl, so everybody I'm not that drunk. But, I really think this could be a force for years to come. There are some injury, kind of things with them that could cause problems, but hopefully they can really show something and move forward. So any other things from there? Do you guys like that, or do you guys disagree with me? Am I watching the wrong stuff? What do you think?
Could be all the above. That's the mystery box of the draft, right?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to get right into. We're going to talk a little bit about a little more about the draft. But one thing I wanted to sit here and I was thinking about this. What is the future of the Packers? And I always say, color me intrigued, because I think last year's draft, they had a pretty nice draft. Now, Quay Walker, he's got to go to anger management. Like, settle down, son. I get it. You're into it. But, I think he's something. Christian Watson could be another star. Romeo Doubs, I think he's Robert Brooks 2.0. And I think our offensive line, with the exception of Sean Ryan from UCLA, that tackle we got, our guard, he was horrible. Other than that, I think that was, in my opinion, Goody's best draft so far. And we'll see. I could be wrong, but we'll see what happens. But I thought this was a pretty good draft. They got some skilled players, which is, again, Andy will bring up more of this. That was really crazy. And if Jordan Love is good enough, and Mark Murphy, by the way, I think he's got 2 years left and then he's out of there, which, oh, thank God. If he puts the fate of the Packers in good hands with a person who realizes that the product on the field is as or more important than the product off the field, I can see us winning another Super Bowl in 5 years. That's just me. And if not, the 80s is lurking right in that corner. I see you, 80s. Do not even think about it. You are not coming back. We are not having the 80s. And so that's my little tirade of kind of this draft and what the future is. Michael, do you have any thoughts about that before we move on?
No, I mean, I agree with you. That's I'm hoping that Mark Murphy hands the reins off to someone that we're all fond of. Right now, it's the names like Ed Policy are floating around, who I don't know much about him, but just hope it's not a corporate shill. That's all I don't want.
Oh, that'd be the worst. Couldn't stand that. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, Michael, any other notes on the draft at all before we move on to Andy?
I don't think so.
All right, great. Andy? Let you take
Well,
over.
before I do that, I did want to say one thing. We don't have Favre anymore. We don't have Rodgers.
Yeah.
And
Thanks for reminding
if we don't have Hall of Fame type play, at the quarterback position, we're going to have to draft really, really well. We can't have a draft like even in 2020. I mean, if Jordan Love works out, great, but that draft was not good. Not good at all.
No, it wasn't.
And so we have to do really well in the drafting part moving forward. And we're gonna, until we find another Hall of Fame type quarterback, and hopefully we do soon. Maybe I already have one on the roster. Who knows? We're gonna have to do that, and I think that's part of the reason. And this is just totally off the cuff, which is not like me. It's like like when you're in high school and you're loading up the spitballs and you're shooting them at the chalkboard and you're just counting and seeing how many spitballs stick. That's basically what our draft was this year. Because I think we had 11 draft picks to start. We ended up with 13 because we moved back a couple times, picked up some extra picks. We did not trade those picks and move up and try to grab our guy. We took all 13. Right now they have 88 players, and it might be more now, on their roster. And you only have so many roster spots. So I was really surprised they picked all 13. And the more I thought about it, is they're trying to find those diamonds in the rough, and they drafted everybody. 13 players. That's a lot of players to draft.
That is a lot. Yep.
Because they aren't all going to make the roster. So again, they're trying to find those diamonds in the rough, so to speak. So I thought I'd just bring that up before I go into my synopsis of the draft. I don't know. Does that make any sense? What I just said? Hopefully it does.
Sure.
Okay. So anyway, here's my little synopsis. It's not really little because you know how I am when it comes to this kind of stuff. But so anyway, Goody, he stuck with his draft and develop approach, and also drafted players who can play multiple positions.
Yeah,
it's kind of like that Swiss Army knife approach to drafting. So in the first round, like John had mentioned before, and Michael had mentioned, Goody got a young 21-year-old raw, athletic, and Herculean pass rusher in Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa, who can play all defensive line positions. Very interesting. Dave Sinekin, again, of Zone Coverage, said the former Hawkeye made NFL history as the first player picked in the first round to never start a game in college. I'm pausing. First one to never start a game in ever. Yeah, but we had kind of talked about that before, why that was a little bit.
Yeah, that's the way Iowa does. Yeah.
And then Lucas is like a young Ryan Gosling, who starred as Hercules in the TV series Young Hercules in 1998. Just thought I'd put that in there. Goody then took.
Okay.
Well, they call him Hercules, don't they?
Right. Okay. Right.
That's his nickname, so that's why I'm bringing it up.
Good. There you go. Okay. Ryan Gosling, Hercules. Gotcha.
Yeah, he played young Hercules in this very short-lived TV series called Young Hercules. So, anyway. Goody then took two other defensive linemen, Colby Wooden and Carl Brooks. You'd already talked about Carl, I believe.
I like him.
And like Van Ness, Brooks is versatile enough to work right into the rotation and replace some snaps the Packers lost when Dean Lowry and Jerron Reed departed. So Wooden and Brooks can help, replace some of those snaps. So again, it's that draft and develop approach. It's that Swiss Army knife approach to drafting. So any thoughts on that, John, Michael, until I, move on a little bit about the draft?
No, I mean, you just hope that they're right? Because that's that whole idea of you do this well and you look like a genius. You do it wrong and you look like you think you're a genius, or like you're smarter than everyone else in the room all the time. I would love it if 1 year, for the record, I think they did the right thing this year, but I would love one year to just get like the candy pick, to get the one that just everyone wants. It's the shiny car. It's not the safe family vehicle, but it's the Dodge Charger. Like I would like to get that one of these years, and that'd be fun. But this was all good.
Yeah, that would have been Jackson Smith Najiba.
Right.
JSN for short, out of Ohio State, State.
He's the Cobra Mustang to me.
Right.
Right. And that didn't happen.
Here's my here's my quick thing. We're all familiar with the old saying, jack of all trades, master of none. Like you're good at a lot of things, but you're not good at one thing. And sometimes that can be a trouble, right? Because we all knew people. You don't hire a guy that can do plumbing, right? You hire the guy who's a plumber. You know what I'm saying? And that's the way I think Goody is like. He looks at all these people and they go, well, he can play defensive end. Oh, but he could play defensive tackle and he could play linebacker in a pinch. And I'm like, why are you even thinking that? He's a defensive end. Play defensive end. Work on that. Because imagine if J.J. Watt was told, okay, J.J., you're going to play let's get, I'm just off the top of my head. Remember when J.J. Watt played tight end? When Houston would put him as a tight end? Wasn't it weird that they put him at tight end? Like, why is he as tight end? Like, he's a premier pass rusher, and you're like putting him as tight end? Like, does that make sense to you guys? When I don't know if you remember that at all, where he was, and you would just go, why is who? I don't know. It never made sense to me, right? It just never made sense to me. I'm just like, what are we doing? He's a premier pass rusher. He is, a defensive stud, and he's out catching passes as a tight end. Like, what? I don't know. So anyway, that's my spiel. I just don't like that.
I don't know. That was very interesting, John, that you said that. I was actually thinking that. I didn't actually have the guts to say it.
Well, I got the guts.
but that's very true. I mean, like when you go into the National Football League Hall of Fame, you don't go as defensive tackle, defensive end, and outside linebacker.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of have to, usually it's a situation where you are at one position and you do that one position really, really well. And Goody doesn't always draft that way, does he? He's drafting these guys on offensive line, although he didn't draft any of this draft, but he usually drafts offensive linemen that, again, are like Swiss Army knives that can play. Oh, that guy could play guard. He could play center too. Oh, really? Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
great. But the thing is, usually it's your starting left tackle, and that left tackle is going to be a Hall of Famer. You don't, he doesn't usually switch to the right side, type thing. But
absolutely,
he's a lot of times he's drafting players that are flexible, that can do a lot of different things.
And
you're absolutely right. That did cross my mind. I was like,
I don't know, man.
I think, I don't know if that's the best way to draft.
I don't know. I don't know
either.
Like Michael said, we'll have to wait and see. But
some other very interesting Goody draft decisions. With the majority of the draft, the Packers selected a lot of players who were injured last year. It's like an infirmary. Tight end Luke Musgrave had a knee situation. Tucker Kraft had a right ankle surgery. And kicker Anders Carlson, who Michael mentioned before, had an ACL and a left arm fracture the last few years. And, our GM selected a quarterback in the 5th round. Michael also mentioned him. The 11th quarterback selected. In all, 12 quarterbacks were selected in the first 5 rounds of the 2023 NFL draft. The most signal callers selected in the common draft era since 1967. Wow. The previous record of 11 was set in 1995. Quarterback Sean Clifford hates the Packers. And this was from several other people. I'm not saying this. He had to definitely adjust his Instagram account. He had a lot of pictures of himself in Chicago Bears attire, I'm sure. In addition, he wasn't even supposed to be drafted. He was projected to be a priority free agent which means he wasn't so expected to be drafted. He's supposed to be a free agent.
Uh-huh.
Packers could have just used a 7th round pick on him or not drafted him at all. So really, in my opinion, that was a wasted pick in the 5th round.
It was.
Yes, we need a backup quarterback. I'm not saying that.
So,
but a lot of people ripped the Packers a new one, so to speak, when they selected him in the 5th round.
Put on the tape of Sean Clifford. He is the weirdest quarterback I've seen get drafted in the 5th round, because he will hit some receivers like right on the money, and then the next play he throws it 10 yards over their heads. I'm like, what? Like, you're drafting a guy that's inconsistent? Like, who? I would have there were plenty other players you could have got, special teams guys. I just think this is a ridiculous pick too. I do not like this pick. That was a rough pick for me. So anyway, you already talked about Anders Carlson. He's a younger brother,
we're gonna move on. Michael, do you have any other
Daniel
interesting
Carlson?
takes that, just listening to the two of us, you probably have a lot of things that get popped into your mind that you're like, I don't agree with those two at all.
No, honestly, you're very thorough. I have nothing to add on this one.
Okay. So on the positive side of things with the draft, and John already mentioned safety Anthony Johnson
I love
Jr.
him.
He could be a starter for the team in 2024. I read that in several different spots. Because he switched from cornerback to safety last year, he gives you the cover ability of a corner and the size and aggression of a safety. Johnson Jr. can play at the nickel or dime spots and eventually move to safety. I love the versatility of this pick. And again, that's kind of a Goody thing. But he can play corner and he can play safety. He can play both. So that is pretty important for our secondary. And hopefully he'll be a great fit. I like the pick of wide receiver Jaden Reed, albeit too high. They drafted him, I think, with the 50th pick. He was projected in the 3rd round, by the way. And they had us taking him in several publications. I think we mentioned him on a previous podcast.
Yes, we did.
And he just didn't go when I thought he was going to go in the 3rd round. He went in the 2nd round to us, but I was right on that one. And then I'm not really, I'm happy with Jaden and everything. I think he's going to be a good fit. And I was listening to Michael, came up with some really good comments about Jaden. And the thing that popped into my head that I heard somebody say is that he's Randall Cobb 2.0.
No. I disagree. Hold on, Michael.
I'm not even sure if that's true. That's what I heard, though.
Hold on. Michael and Andy, tell me if I'm wrong. He's Antonio Freeman 2.0.
Oh.
Interesting.
Michael? Remember?
I have no idea other than being in the slot, but Freeman played in the slot too sometimes, didn't he? So I don't
correct.
Yeah, I mean it could be any of them. I agree that I thought more of Randall Cobb only just from recency, bias, but I could see either.
Oh.
The reason I say that is because he's just like Antonio Freeman. He would be wide open in the middle. Brett Favre throwing the ball, he'd drop it, and you just pull your hair out. That's the one. We lose the game, whatever it is. And then other times he would have people hanging on him, and he'd catch the ball, and you'd go, "How'd he catch that?" And then punt returns. He did punt returns for a little while until he started fumbling the ball. But he would have a punt return, and he would run it back to the 40-yard line of the opponent, whatever. And you'd go, "Oh, yeah, okay, great." And then next time, he'd go running out of bounds as soon as the guys are chasing him. And you were just like, what is going on? And that, to me, is Jaden Reed. I was watching some tape on him, and he made this catch against the Wisconsin cornerback. Ooh. But he made his catch to win the game against the Wisconsin cornerback in overtime, where you were just like, how did he catch that? The corner from Wisconsin was all over him. And then one time he's strolling down the field. The Michigan State quarterback throws him the ball. He's wide open, just drops it. No reason. Nobody's near him. just drops it.
That is
And you're just
Antonio
like,
Freeman.
right?
It's
Yeah,
Antonio Freeman 2.0.
yeah.
Yeah, he also
And
he threw a
so I'm just
touchdown
like,
pass against
yeah.
Wisconsin too, by the way, John.
Yes,
So yeah,
yeah.
just to let you know, he threw a
So
touchdown pass too.
I
So he's
want you
very
guys to
versatile.
remember that. I want you guys to both remember that during the season if he plays, and then we'll text each other and I'll go, see? Or I could be wrong, which is probably I'm wrong.
So Michael, I'm just going to talk to John now. John, I want you to remember this. Remember this, John.
Yeah.
Tennessee wide receivers Jalen Hyatt. Remember we talked about him, and Cedric
Yes.
Tillman were still
Yeah.
on the board, and Marvin Mims
I
from
know.
Oklahoma.
I know.
So
Telling you,
I
Hyatt would
understand
have
why
been the better
Goody
pick.
did this. I understand he was trying to get a player that could play the slot, but those are some pretty darn good wide receivers. And then remember Branch, the safety from Alabama. We traded back with Detroit, I think it was, the Lions at 40. We went from 45 up to like 48.
Yeah, something
And
like that.
anyway, we could have picked Branch at 45. We went back to 50 eventually. I think we went back twice because Pittsburgh moved up too, or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. So we eventually went from 45 to 48, and I think to 50. But he was there. Remember we talked about him too?
I know.
Would have been nice to have him. Just saying.
Well.
But yes, I do like the pick. I just think it was a reach. I think it was just a little bit too high.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
Okay.
Moving on. Most of all, I absolutely love that the Packers got 2 out of the top 5 tight end draft prospects, maybe projects too, in the entire 2023 draft. I love it. I absolutely love that they gave Jordan Love some love and got him some weapons on offense. Tight end Tucker Kraft has been compared to fellow and former South Dakota State tight end Dallas Goedert from the NFC Championship champion Philadelphia Eagles. So they think he's Dallas Goedert 2.0. Tight end Luke Musgrave drew an interesting pro comp to former Las Vegas Raiders and current New York Giants tight end Darren Waller. That could be awesome for the Packers offense and Jordan Love moving forward. So, John, Michael, any comments on that draft synopsis that I gave, or any other positive feedback that you can give?
It's very exciting. You know, it's always hard to predict exactly how these are going to work out, but on paper, anyways, it looks like a good draft at this moment.
Yeah, John and I, Michael, when we were 4 hours on the TV on YouTube or whatever, we talked about that several times, like hoping. Okay, so they didn't draft offensive position player again, 21 years in a row.
We have the record.
But I was like, man, John, I would be happy if in the second and third round we picked a tight end or 2.
Yeah.
And they actually did it.
Yes,
so
they did.
I liked what they did from the standpoint. Those 2 definitely solidify that position. And hopefully they turn out to be pretty good players. Can only hope, but
yeah, absolutely. So wrapping up the show here. Thank you, Michael, for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you on.
Oh, my pleasure. All mine, honestly.
We're going to have a schedule release show and make our way too early win-loss predictions coming up here. So I will let you know. Hopefully you're available because I love you to join us. And what we're going to do, Michael, we're going to pick the Packers, what their win-loss is, because the schedule release comes out May 10th, 11th, comes out next week. So then we can see who's playing what. And we're going to do the Jets, Michael. So we're going to do that, and Andy. And then for the heck of it, let's do the whole NFC North if you guys are up for it. Michael, you up for that?
I'm up for it. Yes, if I can fit it into my schedule, I am up for it.
Awesome.
That would be great. Because like I said, I would love to invite you back, and then we will pick that. And before you go, Michael, again, could you just share where we can see Beyond Human Nature? Again,
Yes.
Voodoo and Prime. Where else?
Absolutely anywhere that you would buy or rent digital movies. So if you're an Apple iTunes person, go there. If you're a Prime Video person, go there. If you're an Xbox person, go there. DirecTV, all of them. So, any of those places, you'll find it at this moment. And if you're from Wisconsin or live in Wisconsin currently, you have to be aware of the Tom Monfiles case, of the Pulp Bat murder, of the Monfile 6. It's a part of Wisconsin lore. And that's the story we told.
Yes, absolutely. And, like I said, I'm going to pinch you. I'm not going to pinch you.
Where did this just go?
Where did this go?
Pinch
I'm going to
yourself.
pinch you. I'm going to pinch you because you talked about doing the Rodgers thing down the line, just like you did Favre. Think about it, Michael. That's all I have to say. Because I think it would be kind of fun to do a Rodgers documentary. So
it just needs that third act turn. He needs to either go to the Vikings or the 49ers or something like that. If he does that, then we're there.
Absolutely. So Andy, you want to sign off with Michael here, as long as we got him?
Yeah, I just have to do this. Sorry, Michael, and sorry, John. So these are Michael's words of wisdom, because I listened to episode 11 and 18 of Packers Blitz, and I loved all the words that he said, like partake, asset, mystique, complacency,
there we
narrative, corporate vibe. I love that one. Corporate vibe, surreal. And then the one that really stuck with me that we'll have to have a conversation about would be jackweed.
Jackweed.
So I had to bring it up. Sorry, I couldn't it just stuck out there, and I had to it's like the apple on the vine, or the peach on the vine, and I'm picking the peach off the vine, and I just had to do it. So sorry.
I gotcha.
Okay. So Michael, John, thank you. Thanks everybody for joining us and giving us Packer fans your insight into the Aaron Rodgers trade, the new Jordan Love contract, and the Packers 2023 draft. Hopefully those three things will move the Packers forward in a positive direction and help us to win more championships for the greatest fan base in the world.
Yes. So thank you, Michael, for joining us. Again, please hit subscribe on YouTube, as well as hit subscribe in all your favorite Spotify and iHeart Radio that you listen to our podcast. We love you, Packer fans, and love you guys. We will talk later.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Michael. Have a good night.
You too.